Welcome to Silencing Imposter Syndrome. It's one of my favorite topics to talk about. Normally the things we struggle with are things that we feel we're lacking, that we project into the future and that haven't happened yet, so things that aren't yet real. What makes Imposter Syndrome so unique is that it is real. You have achieved certain things, you've accomplished goals, you've gotten this far. And yet you still feel like you don't have enough. So we're going to dive into that today. It's going to be a fun session, very interactive. You can ask questions anytime you want. I thrive off of the engagement. I ran companies for many years, and I never experienced any situation where multiple people come together can't produce something greater and more amazing than any individual can. It's just because we have all our unique perspectives and our backgrounds and the lives we've lived, and we bring all of that into the mix, and then something amazing happens each and every time. So feel free to raise your hand. Even if I'm in the middle of something, I'll finish what I'm saying and I'll call on you. We do have a dedicated Q&A piece at the end if you want to wait that long, but I find that whenever something comes up is the best time to bring it up. And that's how life works best anyway, right? When we delay things, when we wait, when we put off the inspiration that we're feeling right now and say, well, I'll do this, some other time, I'll do it maybe next year when I have more vacation or this or that. This takes us out of alignment, out of sync with life. Things arise in us at that particular moment because of the complexities of the energies involved and all the sources of inspiration and our life and who we are at that moment. And if we delay that, then we get into this hiccup place where we're not really in sync with life. And so when that time comes, whenever you thought you would do this, you'll be a different person. We shed all of our skin every 14 days. We are different people, continuously evolving. And that's really at the heart of imposter syndrome as well, is that we take a snapshot and we make it permanent, because that's how the mind likes to operate. It makes statements of permanence. I am this. I am not this. That's not the nature of life. The nature of life is change. You are never something. Nothing is ever something. We only get into trouble when we operate that way, when we believe that something is something, when we believe we are who we are. In the context of permanence. Right? So that permanence does not exist. This is really our journey for every single one of us. We're conditioned to live for outcomes and set goals. And then we reach those goals, and then they don't deliver the happiness we expected. We've all experienced that. Probably a key ingredient of what drove you to be here today. The socially prescribed path of just chasing your happiness, sacrificing your joy right now. And then when you achieve something, if you achieve something, because most of the time life has its own ideas in mind. Every session, every workshop I ever do, I ask, anyone here, has your life gone according to plan? To this day, not a single person has raised their hand. Yet we continue to live like we can predict the future, like we can create a plan and then have everything line up with that. There's a medium in there somewhere where you can make a plan and then be flexible enough. You can set a direction, but most of it comes from the co-creative process, meaning being open enough to allow in the unknown. Even if the unknown is uncomfortable, it's only uncomfortable to the mind. So if we're in the mind that likes to control everything, the three sources of motivation of the mind are fear of the unknown, lack, not being enough, and control. It wants to control everything. So if we're operating from that place, then we're subject to all of those things. All our decisions will include those ingredients. And whatever ingredients, whatever the motives are that we put into our decision making, that's going to be included, it'll be integrated in the outcome. We're just perpetuating it, if not multiplying it. Take a little seed of insecurity and then create some big situation from that. and then it could be even bigger than before. So we're going to dive into all of that today. Imposter syndrome is an artifact of the mind wanting to make statements of permanence, and then we believe it, right? That's the key. You could be a long-time meditator, mindfulness practitioner, and you'll still have thoughts. Thoughts come along, they arise from all kinds of places. It might get less because you're not giving your attention to your thoughts as much, you're not believing them as much, and thus you're not going down the rabbit hole as much. We spend most of our time every day, half to 2/3 of our day, lost in thought. If you just hold that for a moment and reflect on the life we live, and we put so much energy into living long and happy and fruitful and productive lives, yet we're not here most of the time. You could add 20, 30, 40, 50 years to your life of actual living time, the more present you are. The more we come out of that head and actually experience what's happening, which is the only thing that's real. We've all heard that before. All right, so before we begin, a little bit about myself. I am Cirak. Trainings, workshops, talks, and writings about living a source-led life. Imposter syndrome is one of those things that comes out of disconnect, not being in sync, not being in the flow, doing things that don't resonate, dealing with these outside voices of people that tell us we should be doing this, we ought to be doing that, we could be doing this, driven by what if, the fears of the unknown. I write a lot of books. Are they in the bookstore here yet? They are. Okay, good. I'm certified meditation Reiki and Qigong. I facilitate retreats for Eckhart Tolle. Anyone know Eckhart? Couple? Okay, good. And I do a lot of podcasts. And my background before this, that's where this tech knowledge comes from. My experience with imposter syndrome was 25 years in Silicon Valley, in Los Angeles, in the dot-com era, working both with corporate Fortune 500 companies and also at the startup level, where really my passion was, but the income wasn't so great, so I had to have some good paying clients along with that. And those are the environments where you see people who are supposedly successful, up the wazoo. They have everything you think you want, that everyone else admires them to. They live in a fancy place, city, they live in fancy homes, they drive the fancy cars, they go to the fancy agency or the job where everyone looks up to these as the holy grail of that industry, whatever they're in, graphic designers, product managers, or art directors, and marketers, whatever it may be. And funny enough, imposter syndrome is rampant in those environments. Well, why is that? So observing that and noticing that tendency and being surrounded by that, that started me thinking about this a long time ago. And it's mainly not because those achievements are not achievements, but it's because you're so stressed, you're always rushing deadline after deadline after deadline, 100 hours per week, there's no weekends, around the clock, and you just get cut off. You get cut off from yourself, from living, nourishing the parts of you that you actually need to be creative, that you need to be successful in those environments. It just burns you out. You can last maybe a year, tops 2 in those environments, and then you're just burnt out. And it takes you just as long to recover from that. And you do that a couple cycles, like I did, then hopefully you start to wake up and realize there must be a better way. And this particular element that you start doubting what you're worth and that you don't deserve where you are, this is just an artifact of being too much in your head. That's all it is. The head is by nature fickle. Mind, we've heard the term monkey mind. It jumps around. It can't stay focused on one thing for more than a few seconds. You can expand that with a mindfulness practice. You can expand that through meditation and start to get lost in thought less often, catch yourself sooner, go less deep. But that's a real practice you have to be committed to. Because most of us, if not all of us, are conditioned by an environment, by a world that is always looking to elicit a reaction from us. Reactivity, pulling us into our head. This is right, this is wrong, believe them, don't believe this. Good or bad, for me or against me, is constant barrage of judgment, of opinions get pulled into our head. And so that instability of the mind, where you just rely on constant comparison, constant validation, so that you can kind of feel okay at best. But more likely you get pulled into the darkness, the dark energy of all of that. That becomes your dominant vibration in life. Imposter syndrome is one of those things. It's just, you're just thinking too much, and the mind is full of fear, control, lack. And so when you get pulled into that so continuously, constantly, you just get pulled into that darkness. Imposter syndrome is essentially a feeling, I'm not good enough. Even though you have all the proof in front of you. That's how strong the mind could be. You could be looking at the house that you finally purchased, or you have the relationship, or you have the kids, you have the title and the income, and you have your bank account, and it's just not enough. It's because the external cannot complete us. We hear this all the time, but we're always chasing that external outcome. So it's all kind of, yes, go ahead.
I have a question a little bit with the definition of imposter syndrome. Thank you very much for the workshop. I was already in my head.
Yes.
You said like imposter syndrome, like not being enough. I always got the definition is I'm not deserving the big house and stuff.
Yeah.
So is there a slight difference? Is it the same? Was always like I'm not deserving.
Yeah. It's in the same vein. It's I would say it's the same thing, or close enough. The I'm not good enough also has spiritual roots that feed into this. So when you look at our transition from formless into form, right, there's a amnesia. We don't remember anything else. We come into this world that is initially full of exuberance and colors and shapes and sizes and just this exciting environment, and we get this impression that we're promised this amazing experience. The world is your playground. You have all the options are yours. You get to make the rules. You're the captain of your ship, the master of your fortunes. You just get to live your life the way you want it. And then slowly or quickly you realize, no, you don't get to live the life that you made up in your head. And then this battle starts to ensue, where it's your ideas versus life's ideas, if you want, right? And there's a disappointment initially from that, and that you can't figure out life. You just you're in your head, you feel isolated, small, and you're so identified with your thoughts that there's almost a natural kind of, I'm not good enough for this world, for this life element to this, because why can't I figure out life? Why can't I make my dreams happen? Why can't? And then society actually, it backs that up even more. Like, you should have your 1-year plan, 5-year plan, 10-year plan. And if you didn't achieve that, then your fault. It's you're the issue. You're the problem. And then you have to, you think like, okay, I have to plan better. I have to work harder. I have to think smarter. I have to get more education, more degrees, and all this stuff. And it's just this mania. So there's this built-in element initially when you're mind-driven, that you're not good enough. And that's in addition to, everyone's subjected to that. And that's in addition to anything you might experience from your actual upbringing in your environment. So parents that don't have the skills, don't have the emotional intelligence, that don't have their own, resolved issues and unresolved issues, that they're able to instill in us this deep trust in life, something greater than ourselves, not just the grades, not just the income, not just the outcomes. And most people are not fortunate enough to have people like that as their parents or in their environment. So we inherit a bunch of I'm not good enough from there as well. So it's, I'm not good enough, and then that really comes out in these high pressure situations where you have a job, you got the promotion, or you finally bought the car, or you look at the house and you feel like, I don't deserve this. It has this underpinning of, I'm not good enough. So yeah. And again, what makes imposter syndrome so unique is that you have the proof in front of you. It's right there. You're not having to, it's not in your imagination. Most of our suffering is in our imagination. And by the way, those who say that imagination isn't real, if you've ever stressed about your future, well, that feels pretty damn real. That's your imagination, no? So our mind is powerful. We've all heard of placebo effects. My dad was a doctor. I remember I was maybe 8 or 9 watching TV with him, and one of those pharmaceutical commercials, and that every other commercial in New York is about that, came up on the screen, and I happened to be looking on the screen where it said 52% of patients showed improvement, and then in small print right next to it, compared to 49 of the placebo group. And I was just a kid, but I turned to my dad and I asked him, how is this possible? Is this right? And he just laughed and he said, they spend billions on finding the one medication, the one drug where it has a slight more advantage than disadvantage, and then also with all those exceptions, versus normally it's the other way around. So by nature, placebo is super powerful. Our belief is super powerful. Mock surgeries. Have you heard of mock surgeries? Amazing stuff. They wheel you into the operating room, they dress you up, all the lights and the metal, and they touch your knee or whatever they're operating with the instruments, but they don't do anything, and you come out healed. Just look that up. It's cool stuff. It works for certain things. So the power of the mind, this is not a workshop about that specifically, but it is an ingredient in all our things. And this is the absence of the power of the mind. Imposter syndrome is a power of the mind in the negative way. It's just our beliefs. We're just believing something to be real. There's the objective reality, what I call objective reality, of things just happening. Right? What is that? It's happening whether you are there or not. If you can describe a situation, the way it happens when you're there or when you're not there, that's objective. The tree falls, a cup is spilled, the lights go out. The subjective reality, which is everyone has their own, nobody really lives the objective reality, is, oh, why me, poor me, this always happens to me, our story, our narrative that we put on top of this. This is the I'm not good enough narrative when it comes to this. And it's coming out of this narrative. This narrative is most of our reaction, most of our energy, most of our experience is our reaction to our feelings. So all thoughts lead to feelings. We'll just treat them as one. Thought comes along, I'm not good enough. You feel that somewhere, possibly in your stomach. It's a lot of emotions live there. And then we react to that. Unless we've taken a course like this to understand the signal chain of what's happening here, we might just think, well, that is making me, something on the external, where somebody said something is making me upset. And then we point at them, we blame them. A signal chain is we perceive something with our senses, we see or we hear something, we interpret that, that's our subjective filter, based on past conditioning. That part of the mind then results in sensations in your body somewhere, right? The person standing right next to you could be witnessing the exact same situation. Completely different take, has their own subjective filters, their own conditioning. And then, this is the key part, and this is what Buddha discovered, or rediscovered, is that we are reacting to the feeling that this external event has evoked in us. And more specifically, that our interpretation of the external event has brought up in us. So we're always reacting to ourselves. The interpretation of the event is ourselves as well. This is a mirror. This is our filters. This is your world. Every single person, until you get to that point of objective reality, pure presence, meta-awareness, the state of being aware that you're aware. Until you get there, we all have some kind of filter. We're all interpreting our environment. So essentially, we're always only experiencing ourselves. No one is doing anything to us. In fact, it's an opportunity to see that, what is this telling me about myself? Because it's not happening to us, it's happening because of us, because of who we are. And to turn that into a for us, this is happening for me to look at the parts of me that are unhealed. This is the progression of awareness. And then from there you can really let go and go into the flow, life is happening through you, and then essentially unity consciousness is the high stage, is when things are happening as you. There is no self. So imposter syndrome is still at the stage where we just identify with beliefs. And learning to breathe some room into that relationship. Here comes a belief. It says, I'm not good enough. I don't deserve this. You have a choice to give your attention to that thought. Everything we give our attention to, we become. We're energetic beings. We have an energy field. All these thoughts come along. All these impressions come along. Everything we give our attention to, we absorb that. We become that. There's an energetic cord that forms, and we absorb that into the sum total of who we are. And if you, in extremes, we've all experienced that. If somebody just walked in right now and they just had a really bad day, everyone would feel their negativity because they've just been ruminating, they've been stewing in that whatever happened to them, and they bring that into the room. Well, that happens at all levels, all degrees. It's not just the kind of obvious one. Or when somebody who's really needy comes to you, and you're like, that's repulsive. It pushes you away. You can feel that. So it's really just about becoming more aware, more energy sensitive, so that we can see what's happening without reactivity. Becoming more energy sensitive means coming out of reactivity. If we react to everything right away, if we react to every thought that comes along, every feeling that's created in us, then we're just always in our head. We're back in our head. We're out of our body. This is the mind then, with lack and fear and control, is in the driver's seat, and we'll just create a mess. We all know we don't make good decisions when we're reactive. And again, everything that we create from, everything we manifest from, eventually is contained in the result. It just perpetuates. So we got to get to the root of things. Sure, there are things you can soothe. Sure, there are things you can, exercises you can do, maybe physical, mental, other things that just kind of calm yourself down. But if you really want to get to the root of these things, it's reactivity. By the time we're our age, is hardwired into our mind. It's in our nervous system. It's just we've been reacting for so long. So along comes the thought of, I don't deserve this, and we just react to it. And so we're here to learn to come out of that reaction to that. And it's surprisingly simple. There's a stream of thoughts that is happening all the time, and we're only suffering because we spend so much energy on giving our attention to every single thought that comes along. The stream of thoughts, and I'm going to believe this one and this one, the next one, this one, every one you believe to, it kind of pulls you into that rabbit hole, and that one then has little baby thoughts in its wake that are of similar nature because it perpetuates. You're really only spiraling down in life, or you're spiraling up. What are you giving your attention to? And that attracts more. We go into law of attraction, we can talk about that. But as soon as we come out of even just one of those attachments to one of those thoughts, because it takes so much energy to constantly be burning our attention, being lost in thought. It's amazing we do it in the first place. It's a mystery to me. Why do we do that when it's so hard? Because we weigh ourselves down. I always say your job is not to make you happy. Your job is not to make yourself unhappy. Because the natural state is ease, is flow, is lightness. Your vibration naturally is up here, and then we glom onto, give our attention to a heavy thought here, a heavy emotion here, and that starts to weigh us down. So we're not problems that need to be fixed, because that's what we're told as well by all kinds of establishments. We just have to let go of our identification with the heaviness, with the darkness, with things that don't resonate. And what kind of task is that we've been given in this life? That we should connect with the things that resonate, that we should connect with things that, follow our bliss. That's a pretty good deal, if you ask me. And we're just so obsessed with, these thoughts and attachments to, I'm not good enough, I don't deserve this. And it's just an identification with belief. Ultimately, all beliefs are limiting beliefs. Everything exists. And then we come along, every one of us, and we believe this little sliver based on conditioning, this little sliver, this little sliver. And then we try to find ourselves in those few slivers. And then we wonder why we can't find ourselves. And a lot of those slivers aren't even our own. Most of them aren't even our own. Carl Jung said most of our issues are the unlived life of our parents. So we just inherit these things. We're imprinted with these things. I mentioned my friend, a psychologist who's helping a mom. She's an athlete and she walks with a limp. Her 4-year-old walks with a limp. We just absorb these things. And if we reflect on our own upbringing, most of the things that we learned from our parents is not what they said. It's just how they carried themselves, the decisions they made, how we observe them navigate life, how we observe them communicate with each other. So all that left aside, we don't need to understand that. There are certain things, it's valuable to go back to a specific trauma that we do remember. You can release things that way. But most of our struggle is the ongoing resistance, right? The thought comes along, I'm not good enough, and now we're dealing with this. We're in our head about it, and it absorbs our energy and our time, and we're not really present during that whole time, and starts to weigh us down, and then some other thought comes along. Don't have what I want in my bank account, and we attach ourselves to that. The full spectrum of all frequencies is available all the time. It's all around us. It's just a question of which one do we tune ourselves to. That's it. It's not so easy when you're identified with something so deeply. It's like, no, this is me. We think our suffering is unique. Right? That's how much we identify with it. I remember growing up, I didn't have a central culture because my parents fled communism from their different countries, but always with an eye of going back. And so I kind of grew up in this bubble of multiculturalism, international schools, and not really one home, one cultural place, one geographical place. And that made me feel extremely lonely, very alone in this world. There was like no one who could identify with me. And the same thing there is like you create your troubles and your idea that's how deeply we glom onto the idea that we're not good enough, that we don't deserve things. And yes, it's hard to come out of that when you're in it. So that should be acknowledged. But it should also be acknowledged that it's actually quite easy to come out of it once you surround yourself with the right people, once you start taking workshops like this, you start reading books like this. There's a lot of distraction that happens that goes counter our healing, counter our growing awareness. So I can't tell you how many barbecues I turned down, how many music concerts, how many hanging out with buddies and friends and pool parties I turned down once I took responsibility for my happiness, for my healing, to create that space in my life that hadn't been there before. And you're going to have to make those decisions. And there's some polite ways to do that. You can invite them, instead of going to the next dance party, just tell them, I'm reading a book this afternoon. You're welcome to join me. Let them filter themselves out. All right. So we're going to talk about definitions, causes, symptoms, types, how to overcome it, of course. Right? Exposing yourself to information is super important. Those who aren't here aren't hearing this. Intellectually understanding it is the next stage, but it's not so hard to understand, really. There's no language that I use that is because I have some kind of triple PhD. It doesn't come from there. It's plain, simple, pedestrian language. All these concepts have been around for thousands of years. Most of the things that I say are probably just reminders for you because you've been around long enough. You're here at this type of a place, surrounded by like-minded. Everyone's in a healing mode, thinking about themselves, reinventing themselves. But reminders at a certain point are as important as being exposed to it initially, because there's just so much until we realize that there's really just so little. But in the beginning, we need crutches, we need systems, we need methodologies. We need to expose ourselves, just absorb it. Let your inner wisdom sort it out for you. I wish I'd known this in high school or in college. I figured it out later in life as a developer, as a programmer. That when there's issues, when there's a problem, most of the time it solves itself if you just ask the question accurately. As a developer, I don't know if any of you are, you kind of have your chat window open all the time, and in that environment, every comma, every hyphen can just break the whole system. So you have to be so detail-oriented, and sometimes there's just a ghost in the machine, as it's called. And so you ask your friends all the time, they're on standby, it's like, have you encountered this before or not? 8 out of 10 times, when you formulate the question accurately enough, the answer comes to you. It comes to you. You don't have to make it up. You don't have to create it. You don't have to bang your head and think, I'm not worthy because I can't think of it. Answers come to us. They arise. Where do they arise from? They arise from within. They arise from source, whatever you want to call it. But they arise from the unknown, from that co-creative place. Whole nother workshop. All right. Energy clearing. Group and individual exercises. We'll be doing a lot of that. We're even, perfect. As long as thoughts are in our head, they tend to, we think we know what we want, we think we have clarity, but as soon as you start writing it out, perhaps through journaling, or as soon as you talk it out, maybe with a good friend, you realize half of it already is like, nah, that's not actually true. You're speaking it out, getting it out of the head on paper. It forces you to apply boundaries and scrutiny in a way that when it's just in your head, it's just kind of floating and it's rampant. These thoughts are rampant. So even that alone can help a lot. That's why it feels good when you hang out with a friend or family member, somebody, partner, and you get to share. It feels even better if they can actively listen to you, meaning they're not judging you as you're talking, because you can feel that. If you're, take it from the listener standpoint, if you're running what the other person is saying through your own mental filters, I believe this, they're wrong about this, how could they think this is ridiculous, all this stuff, they will feel that in the quality of your listening. And more so, that doesn't feel good to you. The ultimate experience of mindfulness is to recognize that you're doing everything to yourself. By attaching yourself to that thought, even the slightest negative thought, you're hurting yourself. So the thing is not to not judge others for some kind of altruistic reason, but the reason is do it for yourself. It doesn't feel good to judge. You take on that negativity, you are adding that to a downward spiral of who you are, of your life experience. Again, the spectrum is always available. What are you tuning yourself to? So, becoming really, really vigilant with our thoughts. What do we give our attention to? This thought that I'm not good enough, or I don't deserve it. And you see how quickly when we glom onto that, that can become a whole blocker. It can become a whole life thing. That can ruin your career. You could be a fantastic manager, an incredible artist, or an incredible colleague, yet that one thing, that one thought of I'm not good enough is blocking you. It's creating so much dread the night before you get up, in the morning to go to work, that it's just blocking you from really fulfilling your great purpose in that way. So, we talk so much about healing, we talk so much about fixing ourselves. Very few people talk about, what awaits you on the other side. Right? It's not just like healing, and then you're done. Healing is about yourself, but then your real life starts, and that's the life of purpose, is of being of service, of giving back. Because all the things you then sorted out within yourself, you are now an expert at sorting out, and you can show others the way. And you'll have that authenticity inside of you. Right? If you're just talking, they can feel that. But if you've walked that, if you felt that, if you experienced that, that's real and people can feel that. And that will make you super effective, believable, and trustworthy. And that comes from having gone through all that. So nothing deserves to be diminished. Right? This is the design of life. We struggle, we sort ourselves out. Because those are the things that deepen us, that we become experts at. People often ask, what's my true calling? How can I figure that out? And I always say, just think of your challenges. Think of your struggles. That's what later turns into your calling. Not the stuff that you're just making up in your head and it's rosy colored and it all looks fantastic and you just start talking about it. It's your challenges that become your calling. All right. Any questions? Or has everything been answered already? We're covering a lot of ground here. But it's all connected. It's all connected. All right. All right, let's address this real quick again. Imposter syndrome is when you doubt your own skills and success despite, to the contrary of what's in front of you. You're actually seeing the fruits of your labor and you somehow don't believe them. If that isn't a wake-up call that the mind doesn't really work, that living for outcomes doesn't really work, I don't know what is. And that, again, assumes you actually do achieve an outcome. Because most of the time we don't. And if we do achieve it, the happiness, satisfaction fades very quickly. I think Tony Robbins did some research with Harvard on how long even the greatest achievements last. And it's about 2 months. So you can work 20 years in your career to achieve that job title. And then you get 2 months out of it. Not a good trade-off. You're also constantly looking around. You can see how when you start believing this thought, it's like somebody's going to find me out any moment now, how this becomes all-consuming. And it all started with just believing a certain thought about yourself. Not having the gap between the thought and you choosing to engage with it or not. And you can tell by now that it isn't just the case with imposter syndrome. It's the case with thoughts about anything. Anything. It's just another example, a prominent example. It's not technically a condition, medical condition yet, but who knows? The way things are going, it's likely to be labeled as such so that you can then prescribe all kinds of drugs for it. All right. We've addressed this. Limiting beliefs often have roots in your personal history, your upbringing. This is where it all starts. It's where everything starts. And to have this burden, right, this attachment to some belief about yourself, and walk through every day, how this affects us, how it weighs us down. It's tremendous. Some people end their lives because they believe their thoughts so much. So it's not a haphazard, it's not a light subject, believing our thoughts. It can completely change the trajectory of your life. And if you factor in multiple lifetimes, you can cut out a lot of the detours if you learn to be more mindful, if you learn to observe your thoughts. If you can observe your thoughts, then, well, you're not your thoughts, right? If you can observe your feelings, that means you're not your feelings, right? So we all understand this. We get this. Yeah, I can observe my thought. Well, that was one thought, but doing it continuously with every thought takes more practice. But that's all it is. Practice. Noticing how I feel instead of reacting to that and blaming the environment just takes some practice. But we can all already do it just when we put a spotlight on it, like right now. So it's just expanding that ability from there. So that's more of a continuous state. And when we're aware of our thoughts, when we're aware of our feelings, then we're living from our awareness, which is who we are. You're not your job, you're not your title, your money, your belongings, your reputation, your name, your body. It's not who we are. You're the awareness of those things. And that already by itself, if you can live more from awareness, it takes so much pressure off of yourself. Like, I'm not good enough, I don't deserve this, but also I'm not pretty enough, I don't look the way I want. Our relationship with aging, our relationship with beginnings and endings, our relationship towards time. All these things that we obsess about and that really hold us back and push us down. They stem from not living from awareness, but from attaching our beliefs to each and every one of the things. That's essentially what the ego is. My early writings, I cut out the concept of ego because I just saw people struggling with it too much. It felt like something that you reject in yourself. Oh, my ego did it. I brought it back a little bit just because it is, when you identify with thoughts, that is the ego. That's the feeling of needing to defend yourself, right? That's not your inner truth, that's a mental truth. Mental truth needs to constantly validate itself. And that's how people get into fights, and that's how nations get into wars. They're all in their heads. If you look anywhere to the world and where injustice is done, it's because people are in their heads about it. They're believing their thoughts. That's all it is. So you can see, when you make peace with your thoughts, then you make peace with the world. So ultimately, world peace is when everyone is at peace with themselves. You stop judging others when you stop believing judgmental thoughts. And then you also stop judging yourself. We're our own worst critic. So more awareness, greater presence. And just even a hint of that infuses so much life, so much energy, so much inspiration, so much creativity. That unknown that we keep blocking ourselves from. Because we're afraid of it, because we can't control it. That's only because when we're in our heads does it feel scary. Deepak Chopra has a great chapter in his 7 Spiritual Habits of Success. If you're feeling uncertain, it means you're at the cusp of creativity. You're tapping into the unknown realm. So uncertainty is a good feeling. Make peace with it. Learn to be with it. Know that that's a crucial, vital ingredient of your unfolding. There's still you, there's still your experience. That doesn't negate any of that. It's not meant to say that you should just float aimlessly through life. But there's a big piece, just say half. Half of your walking through every day, there should be an openness to the unknown. An openness to the unexpected. If you allow that in, you'll never get bored, you'll never feel down, you'll never get depressed, you'll never attach yourself to beliefs such as I'm not good enough or I don't deserve this. There's enough breathing room in you for the continuity of life. This is at the heart of most Buddhist teachings, anicca, impermanence, recognizing that everything keeps moving, everything keeps flowing. And that the only time we get miserable, we get frustrated, and we get down on ourselves is when we try to stop life. When we make statements of permanence. I am this. If you can already just infuse your day with, well, let's see what happens next. Just an ounce of curiosity already starts to take the power away from the identification with thoughts. What does this situation show me about myself? Awareness. Let's see what happens next. Tomorrow's another day. Right? Simple phrases like that. Something feels so dramatic and so devastating right now. If you can get to that place, well, tomorrow's another day. I'm going to wake up and there's going to be another day. The sun will rise and I'm going to have breakfast and make my bed and just get to that point and you're already in a safe space. You'll never get pulled down too far. All right. All of these things, recognizing the symptoms is also key, if not the key, to staying out of imposter syndrome or any other self-limiting beliefs. Is when you recognize something, then again you're coming from awareness. If you are anxious, if you are depressed, and you're in your dread and you're suffering self-doubt and apprehension, then you're identifying with it. But when you can say, I feel anxiety, it's already a difference. You can feel that in just the words. You're not identifying with it any longer. Not, I am anxious, I feel anxiety. I feel there's something happening inside of me. Let it unfold from there. Oh, where is it? Oh, it's in my stomach. Ah, those are the sensations. You're completely disarming the identification with thoughts by bringing in continuity, by bringing in sensations coming out of your head, going into observer mode, the witness state. That is essentially what awareness is. And everything improves from there. You just can't get too low when you have these, you implement these components of awareness throughout your life. So when you feel these things, notice them. Notice. If you remember, take one takeaway from today, just remember the word notice. Because if you can notice something, then you're not identified with it. If you can notice any of these symptoms, then you're not identified with them. Then you are coming to it, you're looking at it from a place of awareness. And that's your power place. That's the pole position. From there, nothing can really get to you. It's happening. You're observing it. Only the mind judges. But your awareness is holding space. It's happening. Some things are pleasant, some things are unpleasant. That doesn't take that away. It's not like you're just like giddy when you're aware. But you've come out of the reactivity, which is most of where your energy goes. And you're just kind of feeling the feelings, just the feelings themselves. This is the wave form of feelings. And what we do is instead of allowing them to arise and pass, right at the onset of a feeling, we react. If it's an unpleasant feeling, we go, oh, I don't like this at all. All of this is reactivity. We're pushing that feeling down, we get it stuck, it's going to come back, it's going to be triggered by other things. Now we're at the mercy of our environment, and we try to control things even more so we don't feel triggered by this that's now stuck inside of us, which would have otherwise just gone and left us. Our natural state to just feel feelings. Yes, some are not so great, but they're much more manageable than our reaction to it. Our reaction is, I don't know, what does this look like? 90, 95%? It's a game changer for me when I recognized this, that most of my suffering was my reaction to the feeling, not the feeling itself. I was in the state where I thought this whole experience is my feeling. But when you can start to see that they're two separate things, then this is the part you can come out of. This is your story, the narrative, right? The story of me. And while you're in this reactivity, you're also missing out on all kinds of other things in life. And we're spending half to 2/3 of our day in reactivity. You could have the business opportunity of a lifetime, or a romantic love of your life, or a beautiful sunset, or anything could be happening right in front of you and you miss out. You just don't see it because you're not there. You're in here. And then we have these habits where we tell others, oh, you can't believe what happened to me today on the freeway, somebody cut me off, and we perpetuate these things. This little moment becomes this huge experience. And we feel like a victim. And we reinforce that victim mindset. Downward spiral, downward spiral, downward spiral. The good news is it's equally easy to create the upward spiral. You see things as they are, you feel your feelings as they are, and then you move forward, you move on. We don't know what's right and wrong, what's good or bad anyway. It's impossible. The mind tries to make these things up because it's afraid of the unknown. But any one of us can look back on our life and say something that happened that was, a disaster at the time. You look back and eventually you realize, no, that really had to happen. That taught me an incredible lesson. It deepened me. It was good for me. We all get to that point. Or something that seemed great at the time and later turned out to be a detriment. Or brushing your teeth for 5 extra seconds in the morning 10 years ago affected where you are crossing the road 10 years from now. We just can't know what's right or wrong. It's just ridiculous to try and control and steer life. And it's also extremely tedious. It burns our energy, keeps us blocked from seeing life, the aliveness all around us. These feelings, this is abundance right here. These feelings coming and going happen so fast. When you come out of reactivity, there's this acceleration. They often say, when you become more mindful, life accelerates and slows down at the same time. Slows down because you become more present, you're really experiencing things as they are one by one. But it speeds up because you're no longer resisting, you're no longer trying to control, you're no longer blocking yourself, you're no longer believing in just these beliefs and these beliefs and these beliefs, all these limiting beliefs, but you're allowing all of it to show up. Wow, life just accelerates. Your biggest problem should be too much inspiration, too much creativity, too much abundance of all these shapes and sizes and colors and opportunities. The diversity, just look at ourselves, every single one of us. Crazy different, crazy. I don't even know your backgrounds. Learning to really appreciate, if you look at the decor, what went into designing this place? It's unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. If we just walk into a room and sit there, or we just look at a table and call it a table or tree, then that's all we see, with that mental snapshot. But if we take a moment to actually look at the detail of it, then we see the aliveness of it. Everything's vibrating molecules. Nothing is the same. And nothing continues to be the same. That same tree will have a different energy tomorrow. Will have it grown this way or that way, has changed. If you're with a partner for a long time and they're starting to feel bored, look for the detail. Look at their earlobes. Something that you haven't noticed before, and the aliveness comes back. So there's aliveness all around us. And connecting to that, that is abundance. That is a feeling of exuberance. And that should be really our only problem, is we're still in our bodies. We still only have so much energy, so much time every day. So we can't do everything. We can't execute on every single idea that comes to us. But that's a beautiful problem to have. And that's really our natural state. Then you can start having conversations with the ideas. I'm like, okay, is this the right time to take this on? Because I'm doing this other thing, or I've got this coming up, or I only have so much availability. Start to really play with life. It's a playground. There's tools, there's toys, there's all kinds of things happening in that playground. There's no value whatsoever bringing in the past. Baggage, attachments, regrets, guilt. And there's certainly no value in projecting expectations from the future, putting things into the playground that aren't there. Now you're just dealing with something that isn't real. Deal with what's real. There's so much there. You don't need to add to it or detract from it either. If you're in resistance to what's there, then that's an even bigger problem. Now you're really opposing life. You think you're going to win? Nothing has ever changed from you wanting it to be different after it's already happened. And we keep thinking that we somehow, through our resistance, can change something that's already happened. It's not going to happen. So just becoming aware of these little patterns that we all have in our heads and that we live by. A whole area of your life will pop and open up. Like, wow. And it's not so hard. Just feel what you're feeling. Someone at a recent workshop a couple of weeks ago here asked, how can I tell the difference between working in the flow, I'm passionate about it, and then overworking and getting into a rut. And I asked her, well, how do you feel? We've somehow gotten away from this idea that our feelings aren't a good indicator of what our truth is or what we should be doing. In fact, they're our only indicator, the best indicator. We are unique. Every single one of us have our own life, our own internal makeup, our own imprints, our own experiences. There is no one that can. Your parents don't know you. They can't know you. They're not you, even if they're well-intentioned. So we can only really trust ourselves, and we certainly can't trust the mind. We can only trust our feelings. The mind is great, shouldn't be denounced. It's great for information gathering, collecting data. Once you've made a decision, once you have a plan. But it's horrible at knowing what's right for you. You cannot task it with decide what's right for me. It doesn't know you. It's a tool that we're supposed to use. It's not supposed to be in this driver's seat where it just knows everything, will negotiate through life, making decisions for you. Your truth is in your body, it's your wisdom, it's your gut, it's your intuition, it's your heart space, it's your higher self, it's your inner divinity, call it what you want. It's not the mind. So listen to your feelings. They're telling us everything we need to know. If you're blocked, I do this to this day. I'm in my nature, I tend to push. I accelerate because of all this abundance. It's like, oh, I got so many books to write, I got so many projects to do, so many talks to do. And then it starts to get bogged down every once in a while. My job is to notice that. Notice that I'm pushing too hard again. That the flow has left me a bit. And the sooner I notice that, the more I can take a step back, and then, wow, the flow picks up again. Miracle. Things happen then. The unknown is back in the equation. I was so focused on execution that I wasn't letting in new, fresh energy. And that's when things get bogged down. It's also when accidents happen. It's when we're not paying attention, when we're lost in our thought, when we want it so much one way. Because that alertness of being open to the unknown protects us. It's this amazing thing. When you're aware of your environment, aware of the energies at play, you're in a safe place. Life takes care of us. Yes?
I have a thought or a question about feeling the emotions, or like feeling your feelings. When you basically grow up and you have these limiting beliefs, and I'm not positive, or whatever it is. It creates a feeling as well.
Yes.
So somehow in the healing process, if you call it healing, you learn not to trust these feelings because they are ego generated somehow.
Mm-hmm.
On the other side, how do I know that this is a feeling if I'm like, I don't want to do this workshop right now? It's just a simple example. How do I know if it's now still triggered by a limiting belief, or is it a true soul reaction to it?
Yeah.
Like, because you have to unlearn the one thing you learned, and then you should learn it again.
Yeah. Great question. It's much simpler than that. The initial, and I'll just kind of reflect what you said there, the not trusting that feeling, that's judgment still. That's not allowing it to be and holding space for it to arise and pass. But that's a form of judgment. I should be feeling that. So it feels like there's an element of rejection or judgment of that particular feeling. And that's not what we're talking about here. The wisdom that you're looking for arises after you let the feeling come and go. Feeling your feelings here, this is reactivity, remember? Feeling your feelings fully, allowing, this is where none of us are used to feeling our feelings fully. We're always reacting to our feelings, unless we're Zen masters. So that's what keeps us in our mind. Feeling your feelings fully keeps you out of your mind, keeps you clear-headed. So now you can make decisions that are from a clear place, and those are good decisions always. But those decisions from a clear mind are based on an intuitive resonance. So it's how something feels.
So it's not about feeling better, it's getting better at feeling.
Ooh, I like that. Yes, it's not about feeling better, it's about getting better at feeling. You should trademark that.
I think it's somewhere in Instagram.
Okay. Yeah.
But maybe if you're the first one, okay.
So allow that feeling of I'm not good enough. Observe the sensation where it shows up, right? By observing it, by no longer reacting to it, by like, ooh, I don't want that, and letting the whole thing just unravel, you are now sending a message back to the part of your brain that is interpreting, that's generating whatever impetus, anything input that came along, and that made you think I'm not good enough. Maybe you saw somebody else and they're successful or they're wealthy or whatever that prompted, right? That reaction. Now, you're now sending a signal by just observing the sensation, by feeling you're feeling better, by allowing it to rise and pass. You're now sending a message back to the brain. There's no need to interpret it this way anymore. This is not an on-off switch, but gradually you rewire your brain. This is what we're talking about. It's physiological. Our minds are wired in the way we react to things. So just thinking about it differently or just taking even one workshop isn't enough to rewire that. That takes time. By the way, there's also this addiction to big emotions, big feelings that especially modern societies, we're just addicted to these big experiences. And we think we solve this, not knowing that this is actually a reaction to the feeling. We think we can solve this whole experience by experiencing something even bigger. And then we, take to even bigger, sensations and drugs and experiences and ecstasy and like almost just overriding this. There's this idea that the bigger the experience, the more real it is, the more, I hear people say, the more human it feels. When we do 8 or 10 day retreats together and you start coming out of that, you might get the impression that you're no longer human because you're no longer reacting in this big way. Your life experience shifts, it changes. And that, you're going to come back to a very calm, equanimous state, like mind's equanimity of clarity. It's not a life of extremes. It's not this roller coaster experience. Only when you attach yourself to this thought right here will you go on that roller coaster ride. But the more you can allow this to come and go and to flow, the more you are in the flow, you become a container of life. Yes?
So I'm wondering about the whole process. So I think the first step is like you're getting aware that you are feeling, and therefore you have like the split second when you can see your reaction.
Yes.
But then you're still like kind of lost in what is actually feeling, and that's again for me it's a very rational process, and then I'm again caught in my ego monkey mind, and I'm like, what am I feeling now? What am I supposed to do with that? So what's like the next step?
Yeah. I struggled with that for a great question for a long time as well. I went to my Zen master, gurus, and just for years until I finally understood a feeling is not something that's floating around in our head. A feeling is the physical sensation. You're not aborting your feelings by observing the sensation. Right? You're not diminishing or pushing away or separating yourself from your feelings. The feeling is what shows up in your body. That's a feeling. And everything else, the understanding of it, the interpretation of it, that's mind stuff again. You're reacting to that in a way. You're trying to make sense of it. You're trying to explain it. You're trying to solve it. Where do I take this from here? It's really that simple. Our feelings are what shows up in our body. That's why it's often easier to just call them sensations. What are you sensing in your body? What's coming up? Yeah.
And then what are you doing with it?
That's it. That's your life.
Then you release it, then it's like keep going.
That's it. This is a state of release and flow. And you move from your energy field shifts from like this inward, I'm such a problem, I have so much, all this stories going on inside of me, and this is all, my life is so complicated and all that. You start to open up and become available to the world around you. This is where the flow is happening. This is where true co-creation happens. You don't have to figure out your life ahead of living it. We're all raised to think that. You open yourself up and allow it to come. Allow it to show itself. Yeah. Does that make sense? Okay. It's really that simple. Sometimes, people, myself, my own journey as well, is like, really? It's that simple? We're just supposed to feel our feelings and let them come and go? Over time, we get so bogged down and so complicated that we wake up one day, we realize, how did life get so complex? We've been in our heads, and we've been conditioned to react and react and react and make plans and project and think that we are in control and pursue these outcomes and these hopes and dreams, this whole vision. Every birthday that you have some kind of download, wherever it comes from society, where like, oh, at this point I should be making this much, I should be here, I should be in this relationship, my house should be this big. All of this noise, oh my goodness. It comes from somewhere, media, influences, peers, wherever it comes from. And then we compare ourselves to that. I tell this story sometimes of how I was well in my 30s. I was always in relationships. I was well in my 30s when I went to a restaurant for the first time by myself. And I sat at the counter. It wasn't even a table. I sat at the counter where people who are by themselves go. And I felt so much shame. I looked around. What are people thinking of me? Like, do they think I'm weird? Do they think I don't have friends? Why am I alone? And I was aware enough to go, where are these thoughts coming from? I can't even believe it. It's in us. The key here is not to belabor the past. It is what it is. What I focus on is, how do you feel right now? That's what's real. That's what's stuck. Who caused it? When it happened? Why it happened? There's some things it's good to know that, so you can go back and heal it. Inner child healing, for example, hypnosis, regression therapy, some great modalities for that. But most of the stuff is like, we can't even keep track of it, all the things we react to. Most of the things we don't remember. What do you remember from today? One or two things. From last week? One or two things. From last month? One or two things. From last year? One or two things. We don't remember well. All that goes into our long-term memory, and that goes into our subconscious. So just dealing with your sensations, that's your best connection to your feeling state, your truth, your reality, what's blocking you from hearing your intuition, from hearing your inner voice. It's all of this stuff. Feel where you feel that in your body and work with that, hold that space. We're going to do that in our energy clearing session today. And just release it. It naturally wants to come and go. We're keeping it stuck with our reaction to it. Unpleasant because we don't want it. Oh, we push it down. And pleasant, ooh, I want more of it. We cling to it. And that keeps us stuck as well. So our clinging and resisting is keeping us stuck. And all of that is just based on mental judgment. What we think is right and wrong, good or bad, for me or against me. Yes?
So with this writing of the feelings, how is it comparable to being impulsive, for example?
How is it comparable to what?
Being impulsive.
Oh, impulsive? Great question. I mean, I would describe impulsive as just an extreme or a very rapid form of reactivity. It actually sounds like a good thing, because if you can recognize I'm impulsive, I give workshops to people of all backgrounds, all ages, and many, if not most, once you reach a certain stage in life, you start to catch on to this. You start to realize, why am I just reactive all the time? I can't stop it. In the course of maturity, you will just realize this. Most people do. And then you're confronted with, well, how do I come out of it? What kind of technique, what kind of practice can I establish to come out of it? But to say, I'm impulsive is already, there's a sense of awareness in there. There's a sense of reflection. I'm impulsive. I'm reactive. I'm hyper-reactive. That's a good thing. Noticing that, right? You're noticing it. You're not just acting it out. You're not just being the impulsive reaction. You're actually noticing I'm impulsive. There's a piece of awareness in that. And that little piece will then have you seeking out help or support or like-minded or taking classes or workshops, just like this. Yeah, so that's good. Yeah.
What we have is physical sensation, and we try to understand why, what triggered it. Is it reactive or?
Yes, yeah. It's a mild form of reaction, I would say, to say, well, what caused this? Unless you're really going into big reaction about it. If you can calmly feel a sensation here, or solar plexus, or my lungs are grief, throat is from not speaking up, and heartache, obviously there's some weight on your shoulders, there's some obvious things, but I work with people who have pain in their big toe. But whatever it is, if you can say, oh, yeah, I'm feeling sensation there. I wonder where it comes from. That's already a good state to be in. Because you're not just like, oh, I don't want this, and pushing it away, and or getting all in a big uproar about it. So if you can calmly say, oh, I wonder where this is from. A moment of that might be okay, to just like reflect, and because there is value in when some new ache or new pain or something that's happening that is new, there's an element of just kind of reflecting, well, what have I been doing differently? Has my diet changed, or who am I hanging out with, or have I not been sleeping well, and why is that? And so if you can do it from that perspective, reflect on that, that seems actually beneficial. But it almost, if you break it apart, you unpack it in more detail, you're allowing it, your reflection is actually happening after the sensation. So that's actually a great state. You've allowed it to come and go and arise and pass, and now you're reflecting on from a place of greater wisdom of like, where could this be coming from? So you kind of have to look at the situation exactly. Are you still feeling it, and it's still happening, and now you're starting to wonder, where does this come from? The ideal would be to allow that sensation, give it space, focus on, don't get mixed up with thoughts into it, and you're not in the clear-headed space just yet. Maybe you are, but if, at least to start with, I would say just allow that to come and go, and then reflect on it. Otherwise, you run risk of getting all mixed up. Yeah. Great questions. I love that. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I think the mind always is quick to go into a fixing and changing mode. When I notice a feeling and I ask myself, where does this come from? This is, for me, the wrong thing. Then I will hunt it down.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is more a reaction to the feeling, to the sensation, yeah. That you need to fix it. It's also a typical guy thing, right? We like to fix things, and that's a specific masculine thing of feeling your feelings, and that's our challenge to just allow that to be and not needing to fix it.
But that doesn't mean that women are off the hook, because it's a masculine world, and I know a lot of women who are just like that.
Yeah. Yes. No. Nobody's off the hook. I mean, this is beyond genders, really. It's like this is a design of life question. How are we designed as human beings to operate? There might be variations and differences. But I'd say there are probably more differences just at the individual level than just because of that. That's one of those things. But yeah, and again, noticing that tendency, why do I need to fix things? Just noticing, keep noticing. Again, if there's one word you take away or you write down or you walk away with, it's just notice. We're so conditioned by this big reactive mind, and we want these instant solutions. We want the fix-it pill. We want it we want to jump to our healed state. It's not how it happens. We don't get to where we want to be by wanting to be there. We get to where we want to be by wanting to be here. Acceptance. You have to want to be here, otherwise you're in resistance. And nothing grows from resistance. That's not fertile ground. So as hard as it is for the mind, and we're so in our mind, to accept, because the mind thinks, acceptance means giving in or giving up, or being a doormat for life. I'm just going to roll over and let whatever comes along, I'm just going to let it happen, not do anything. No, we're staying out of reactivity so we can see clearly and think clearly and see things as they are, only what's real. And then we can take clear action based on that. Much better action. Action does not contain the seeds of jealousy or reactivity or anger or whatever low frequencies might motivate you. But more so, we become a co-creator of what's actually there. This is really where God rejoices, if you want to say that, when a human evolves to the point where it can co-create with Source. It's when you have those moments of flow, right, where you're in the zone, you can feel how everything is so perfect, effortless. It's just happening. You have to do nothing. Yours is the ultimate co-creation place. How life just is waiting for us to align the pieces or to let go of the pieces that we think we need to put in place so that we can join Source in that amazing dance. And even top athletes, very few of them experience true flow, even though this is their job. But even they are so much in their head still, like they don't really tap into that place. So that's what awaits us. We talked about, what awaits us beyond healing. Because there's so much focus on just healing, healing, healing. That's part of it. It's necessary to move us forward. All of these experiences, being obsessed with thoughts and getting pulled into rabbit holes, that builds contrast. We've talked about this. And that contrast moves you forward. It makes you think, well, there must be a better way. And then your contrast, your challenges become your calling and you can help others. And then we graduate from Earth School. And then we're done. So jobs and achievements and the cars and even our relationships, those are co-stars in our adventure and our journey, but it's all about us. Mindfulness, consciousness, it's all about you. Your relationship with Source. That's what determines everything. And from there, you can apply yourself fully. As long as there's limits, and we all have them, but the more bogged down we get, and the more we can be of service, we can help others, we can inspire others, we can contribute that frequency. If you want to sit on the top of a mountain, just meditate, you're contributing that frequency. Or if you want to bring the light of your awareness into your job, into your corporate environment and change from within, those are often the most effective ways to bring change, positive change. It's up to you. Everyone has their amazing story. And that will change over time as well. New chapters, different chapters. Next week we're doing the Art of Reinventing Yourself workshop here. You should come for that one as well. It's a good add-on to this. All right. Great questions. So the types of imposter syndrome, again, just noticing, right? Perfectionism is at the top of the list. I mean, we all want to be perfect. We're trained to be perfect. We're brought up to not make a mistake. A mistake is the worst thing you can make. It'll haunt you for the rest of your life, we're told. That's why I enjoyed the startup scene so much, because it embraces more of our natural state as well. By failing, we move forward. You fail fast, you fail often, you fail forward is the mantra. Because that's how we learn. We should replace the word failure with learning, or even better, with growing. That's what we're doing. That's how we learn to walk. That's how we learn to think everything. Fear of failure, we've talked about that. Fear of success, you can even be afraid of success. Isn't that amazing? Fear of success. I learned this early on as I became more senior in my web design and UX design career. I was in a position to be able to open doors for others. And so initially I would open doors for others, and then I'd hear back from the hiring manager or somebody that I set them up, or an interview or whatever. And they didn't show up, or they just postponed and never heard from them again. I was like, what happened? And I took it personally. I got really upset. Like, all they had to do is show up, essentially. But they didn't. And I had to get to a place where, like, okay, I can't have expectations in this either. You can show the direction, you can show the door, but everyone has to step through it themselves. This is why, if you've ever wondered why the world is primarily unconscious, after thousands of years of all this stuff I'm talking about is, ancient Greeks, philosophers talked about this. It's in the Bible. All this is in the Bible. All this is in Buddhism. All of this is in and the Stoics throughout the centuries. Today you have comedians who their whole platform is awareness and mindfulness. I mean, the information is there. That's not the issue. The issue is every single person has to walk the path themselves. No one can do it for you. This idea that someone is going to come and rescue you, not going to happen. And that's okay. You know, there's more lifetimes to be lived, and eventually we'll get to that point, every single one of us. It's just a question of how soon. You can manifest a whole life from lack, only to then get to the point where, oh, it's not making me as happy as I thought it would. My children don't love me the way that I thought they would. The money doesn't provide me what I thought it would. And then you make peace with that, and that will deepen you. But you spent years or decades investing in that situation to learn that lesson. Or do you do something about your sense of lack and those sensations and those stuck feelings now and those beliefs and on the limitations? And do you release those before you manifest, so that you can actually manifest from something else, from abundance, from openness to the unknown, from not needing to control, from not having fear of success? It's a very different path. Sometimes juxtaposing that you can be afraid of failure as much as you can from success should already be like a light bulb should open up, is like how the mind is just totally irrational. We think that it's a rational tool, but it's not. It jumps from one thing to the next. Anyone who's tried to meditate and keep your attention, do some breath work on your breath, will quickly realize how it just fluctuates after a few seconds. We can't keep our focus for very long. We think we know what we want or what we believe in, yet we don't. Our mind just drifts constantly. The impact that has, for those who are interested on manifestation, the topic of manifestation, the impact that has, the inability to hold a frequency consistently long enough so that you can actually, this is what quantum physics is showing us, get matter to start rearranging itself, is tremendous. We think what we know, we want what we know, but our mind is drifting. So how do you think the universe can respond to that when you're sending out a different signal every 3 seconds? So all of this isn't just good for letting go of imposter syndrome or other limiting beliefs. All of this is fantastic for becoming a master manifester. I just get these pieces into place in my life that then I'll be set, I'll be happy. When the nature of life is continuous change, there is no picture that will just stay put. Once we get there, what are we even thinking? Life just stops and you get to just be happy forever? What does that even mean? Even when we have a good situation, one of the exercises we'll talk about today, the 3 cycles of creation, maintenance, and destruction. Even when we have created something good and we're in that maintenance phase because we want it to stay this way, we either invite destruction because the nature of life is change, we can't keep things standing still, or we get bored and we invite change ourselves. You see this often with people who are materially privileged, were born into a situation where they have a lot of material comfort, and many of them, if they just sit around and don't do anything, they self-destruct. We have to keep doing. The doing is where we recognize ourselves in. That's what being connected and staying alive means. All right. Superheroism, it's actually a word. All right, I'm going to send an email at midnight so everybody else knows that I'm engaged, I'm active, I'm committed to the company. I used to do that. Being the first one to raise your hand to do something even though you already know you're overworked. This is not rocket science here. It's just knowing yourself, knowing your limits, not letting yourself be motivated by these thoughts that I need to prove myself. Overachieving is in that same vein. Denying your wins, we're going to practice that today. The cycle, the rhythm of life is also not to deny receiving. It's also not to not celebrate your wins. When you do achieve things, how many times have you seen people, I've seen this all the time, where they just downplay it. They're lifting the trophy on the winner podium and they're just like, yeah, it's okay. They're not completely open to receiving the praise and the applause. So even when we do chase outcomes, even when we do achieve them, even when we do have the moment of success, we're not even open to receiving it. It's madness. The whole thing is madness. But to just breathe clarity into all of that is so easy. People pleasing. If anything's missing on here, by the way, these last two from last couple of workshops, people contributed and added to this list. So again, this is a collaboration. So when everybody goes, somebody said, oh, there's people pleasing. Yes. First thing I did when I got home, we added this. Procrastination. Right? These are symptoms. And so think about, reflect on what that could be pointing to. Don't just think, well, this is me, I'm a loser, I can't get anything done, I can't get off the couch, I'm a problem. Reflect on that. Greatest, easiest way is to journal. It's that simple. Start writing. I also teach writing classes. The prompts we use in those classes and retreats are 1 or 2 or 3 word prompts. That's all you need, and then the creative flow starts to happen. The stories, your life, your experiences, everything you've observed, everyone you've come in contact with. You're not writing and creating from knowing. Knowledge is essentially dead. It's what you know, it's in the past. You can't create from that. There needs to be the unknown. That element of half of yourself, roughly, is open to, like, what comes next? I can't wait to see how it all unfolds. With a little more awareness, you can apply that to situations that are unpleasant. Like, wow, I can't believe I just lost my phone, or, I got turned down, nobody invited, everyone else was going to the party, and I did. Just like, okay, acknowledge it, acknowledge your feelings. This is not about pushing anything away. It's about feeling what you're feeling accurately. But this is a lot more manageable than all the reactive stuff, and you're not shutting yourself down from this flow that happens. Maybe because you didn't get invited there, you wound up being somewhere else and you met the love of your life. Maybe you didn't cross the street because you lost your keys and couldn't find them for an extra 10 minutes, and you were stressed because you're late to a meeting, but that wound up saving your life, which you might or might not know. And so we cannot know life. We just got to stop pretending that we do. And there are forces at play so much bigger than us. And you can try to fight that, and we all do initially, until we learn that you can't win. And the only choice we have is to surrender. The first step is acceptance. There's still a process there. I'm going to figure out a way to accept this, make peace with it. That will deepen you. And the step beyond that is surrender, that you're already in a state of acceptance when something shows up. No more process. I'm seeing things as they are, as they happen, the unfolding itself. Then you're participating in life. It doesn't take much. You can do that once or twice, and then you realize, because there's so much fear, I need to prepare, I need to talk about, I'm going to calculate every possible permutation of what might happen when I go to work tomorrow and have that meeting. Or when I have that talk with my family or with my partner. That I need to anticipate anything that can happen. So much pressure. As a consultant, lifetime consultant, where you tend to say yes to a lot of work, some of it also fades very quickly again. I wound up in a situation one year where I just had too much work and it was really stressing me out, and anticipating where I would be, needed to be, and who I was going to deal with and all that was pushing me into anxiety mode, and I was starting to have panic attacks. And it was one of those times when I was in my car, I had to pull over to prevent myself from being in a bad situation, and luckily something in me said, let go. Don't go into the next panic attack. Just let go. And suddenly, all this capacity opened up. This is like, I'm going to show up and I'm going to respond to what's there. Not react to what I think might happen, because then I'm coming into the situation with all this noise in my head and all this script, and I'm comparing what's happening to what I think should be happening, and this is where we get all bogged down and all jumbled up. But rather, I started to trust myself to just show up and respond to what's there. And that is a position so powerful. I never expected that. When you can say, I don't know the answer to that, but I'll find out. Because a lot of this needing to plan is a fear of showing weakness, is a fear of failure, is fear of being exposed. There's some idea that you have in your head about who you're supposed to be. When you drop all of that chatter, and just show up, then you're real. You're a real person. People sense that realness in you. There are lots of other consultants, lots of other people with my skill set that could have been hired, but suddenly I was starting to get hired more and more and more. Because I just showed up and I was real. I was open enough to do little things, to comment on somebody's dress or what they're wearing, or to look for solutions and not get pulled into the drama of finger pointing. So one of my biggest breaks in my life was getting accepted to a Google accelerator, incubator. 10,000 people applied. 20 were accepted. I was one of them. What got me in is when I showed up, it was towards the end of the week, the guy had interviewed so many people, all I said was, "You look exhausted." He felt seen and heard, and I wasn't just coming in with another script, a million other scripts that he'd heard all week. But I was real, I was able to address the human. That was a big break in my life. Things like this, and it doesn't have to be a big break, it just has to be joy, ease, flow. I mean, how big of a break is that? No more pressure, no more just waking up and dreading the day that's to come, but just like looking forward to it. I'm going to show up and see what happens. Trust builds, if you just do that a few times, trust builds that you can deal with any situation because you're dealing with what's real, and what's real is always simple, much simpler than if you're preparing a million different things that might happen, not happen, or if you're projecting into what should be happen. Even if you somehow manage to predict all the players, all the elements that were going to show up one particular day, it's still going to be different. The energy of the moment is different. It's the space, the time continuum, everything it has a different sense. You are only alive and real right now, and the next moment is alive and real in its own way. And so you cannot jump and somehow bring in your anticipations from the past. It just doesn't work. So you'll be stumped. You'll be thrown for a loop much more by preparing, overly preparing. It's good to know your stuff, but then let go. And to know your stuff is different from trying to get lost in your rabbit holes, trying to anticipate everything that might happen. That's very different. All right. Just taking in the beautiful rain. Moment of stillness. All the answers we seek are found in stillness. It's like asking the question and then letting go, and letting the answer reveal itself. And learning to be comfortable with stillness is also its own little process. We're not raised to be comfortable alone. It's thought of as shameless, as my restaurant example before. Where do you see billboards of people enjoying themselves, having quiet time? It's always groups, laughing. So we're imprinted by these things. Yet your relationship with yourself is the most important one. Relationships are accelerators in other ways, very important. But everything flows from ourselves. Your relationship with yourself is wherever you go, you bring that with you. I hear people talk about, I want to quit my job, I want to leave my relationship, I want to move to another city, move to a tropical island. Work on yourself first, look at what you're doing, and change that. It's not what you're doing, it's how you do it. How are you doing those things? Are you doing them conscientiously, with awareness, with stillness, with allowingness? Or are you going into every day, every situation with control, fear of I'm not good enough, fear of I need them to like me? That's a very different experience. So do what you're doing, just do it more mindfully, and then you can see, well, maybe you have outgrown this particular position. Maybe you do need a change of scenery, but come out of this part first. Right? Come closer, 5%, 10%, 20% less reactivity is years added to your life of actually being here, of making clearer decisions, not living from fear. All right. So, again, remarkably, how you overcome it is pretty straightforward, pretty simple. A lot of the thoughts that we have that we obsess about are those types of thoughts because they're still in our head and we start to glom onto them and let them rule us. But as soon as we open up and start sharing, through journaling, through speaking out, it already starts to dissipate. We've talked about celebrating your successes. Right? Give what you're doing a full run. Let the cycle complete. Receiving is just as important as giving. All the things we talk about, not judging others, acceptance, allowance, all those things, is first and foremost apply to ourselves. Our inner critic is usually our worst enemy. We can easily forgive others often, but it's hard to forgive ourselves. There's an extra level of attachment there. And if anything, the inability to forgive ourselves spills over into our environment. So once we clean our own act up, then everything else gets a lot easier. I think I've shared the story where I went away for a few years. Had a very good family, but still not perfect growing up. And I went away for a few years and worked on myself. And when I came back, I had the most amazing family ever. I was like, what changed? I had changed. And suddenly, they turned into someone that I wanted them to turn into, without wanting that. Realize that most of our issues with other people comes from wanting them to be somebody they're not. We're in resistance to them. And this resistance is our energy field. It's keeping them that way. It's keeping them stuck as the person we don't want them to be because we're so in resistance to who they are. So if you pull that back, even just a little bit, it changes the dynamic. Change has to happen. You can't expect them to change and become like a perfect parent, a perfect sibling, a perfect partner. But you're giving it a chance. You're giving them the opportunity to self-reflect, hear themselves talk, hear themselves think, that perhaps before they didn't get that chance because interacting with you meant that you were always butting heads and you were locking horns that way. So now you're doing your part by pulling back your resistance to who they are, and that brings a change, breathing room into the relationship. And see what happens. See what happens. One of my favorite quotes when it comes to relationships, somebody asks something about relationships, romantic relationships, is my favorite quote in that regard is from Abraham Hicks. Basically, the attitude we should have going into relationships is, hey, I kind of like you, let's see what happens. And that should be maintained so that even 20 years later, you're still in the mindset of, hey, I kind of like you, let's see what happens. This is keeping you dialed into that place of openness, allowing, not controlling, recognizing change and evolution. You can apply that to your job and other situations as well. It's good now. I'm liking where this is going. We'll see what happens. It's that sweet spot of feeling what you're feeling now, allowing things, allowing yourself to celebrate and be content and present. But there's a piece of openness to the fact that things will change. But you are infusing that recognition of change with I like this direction. Right? So you have that intention that you're setting. You're building. The best predictor of the next moment is the current one. How you feel now is what influences the next moment the most. I'm not trying to create that goal, that outcome, the next moment of what it should be, but how you feel right now, incremental. Change, evolution is incremental. There's all kinds of books written on that. 1% change leads you to your goal. Getting the facts is also a simple one. It's again the mind when it just has these thoughts that it starts to believe stuff. And you to the point where you can get completely depressed about your whole life because you're just up in your head. And so just exposing yourself, it's easy nowadays. You just go online and you'll get somebody, you'll get 100,000 people's opinions about what you're dealing with. And just the fact that there's 100,000 other opinions is already enough sometimes to, you're like, oh wow, there's other viewpoints on this. Could be enough to just break your own attachment, your stranglehold that your thoughts have on you. Self-compassion, self-care. We can't love ourselves enough. We are love. That's what we're returning back to, all of this. Even when we get to the level of just complete objective reality of all thoughts coming and going, no interference, state of unity consciousness is a return back to love. Passion for creation is in us. We don't, as humans, create anything we're not passionate about. If we do, it doesn't come out to be a very good result. We usually create when we're inspired, when we love to create things. Look at nature. It's just crazy. It's bubbling like a geyser full of life. Life, 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 life. It doesn't even matter if it's long life or short life, or twisted life or angular life, above the ground, below the ground. Just life. Massive abundance. Massive. Sometimes it feels like the recipe, the formula of life to stay living is to just be one step ahead of death. And then death actually feeds more life as well. The whole thing is just crazy. So that's the place we come from. That's the same motivation for the love for creation that's inside of all of us. And we have our own unique blueprint, which is even more incredible, right? All the billions and trillions over time creatures that have walked the planet, that every single one of us has a unique blueprint. Wow. The intelligence behind that and the desire. Life isn't annoying us for the sake of annoying us. It's not triggering us to upset us, because that's what we think early on. Like, why aren't things happening my way? Why is life so hard? And why is it only happening to me? Look at everyone else is happy. They figured it out. Why can't I? Life is annoying us, triggering us, because it wants us to grow and become whole. It doesn't want us to stay small. It doesn't want us to have limiting beliefs. And the beauty of it is that the moment we tap into flow, the moment we tap into allowing, the moment we tap into the unknown, we get rewarded. We don't have to wait. There's no judgment day, some end of life or whenever. But we feel good instantly. We feel connected. We're not in this anxious small space of identification with one thought and then the next thought and the next thought. This is a small space. No wonder we're not happy in there. No wonder we start to get out of whack. But instead, we're a container for life to happen. That witnessing presence. And it feels great. We get instantly rewarded. We get instantly punished for trying to use the mind for something it's not designed for. We feel bad. We feel off kilter. We feel lost and disoriented and depressed. These are all signs that we're not aligned. They're not just kind of these standalone conditions that we should be popping pills to get rid of or numb ourselves to. They're indicators that we're not aligned. We're not in the flow. The flow is easy and light. If you're not feeling easy and light, reflect on what you can change to get there. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not a problem. None of us are a problem. But we have all kinds of ways to relate to the world. Pick the one that brings out abundance, brings out flow. Connect in this wide energy spectrum to the frequency that is uplifting, equal, or elevating. That's it. That's all we have to do. Everything is there, all the time. Not comparing yourself to others, that's a tough one. Man. I remember my first book, before I published it, I was still in the writing process, and I went to Barnes & Noble, big mistake. It's the spiritual book section. And I saw 50 books all talking about the same stuff. And authors that had written 5, 10, 12 books. Deepak Chopra's written 53 books. And man, I walked out of there just completely depressed. So depressed. Again, it's just noticing you are unique. Your voice, your lifetime has forged you into a person that has a blueprint like no other. Everything I say, I don't know how many gobs of other people are saying, but they're saying it in their way. And their lifetime has imprinted them with their type of wisdom and with their vocabulary, their background. You don't have to be afraid of somebody stealing your idea, ever. It's coming through you because you are aligned at this moment in time. You're the precise antenna, otherwise you wouldn't receive it. Your job is to stay open to the reception, to let that flow continue, and just execute it, give it your footprint, your fingerprint, your stamp. Don't worry about anything else. It's wanting to come through you at this point in time. That's all that matters. When we get lost in thought, when we start to look at what's already on the bookshelf, if we look at what others are doing, then we're getting into our head, we're going into comparison mode again, and you're bound to feel bad. Bound. But we have control over this. I don't go to Barnes & Noble anymore. Certainly not to the spiritual book section. Just know yourself. This is not rocket science. It all comes from better self-knowing. That's what we're here for. That's what we're all doing. Through one way or another, either in a more accelerated way, as we're doing here right now, or in a more elongated way where we manifest big life situations from lack and fear and control and then learn our lesson that way. That we have to look within, that the external cannot fulfill us, can fulfill us temporarily but not permanently. Being proactive, that's also one of our exercises. To stay at the forefront of your evolution, to never get comfortable. The moment you get comfortable, you're going to invite change. It's like a vacuum. It's not natural. There are rest periods anyway in life. It's just going to happen. Use them when you recognize, things are a little slow right now. I'm not being challenged a whole lot. Use that downtime to just rest and relax, because that usually happens after a big push, growth spurt. Knowing very well, you probably have experienced this or just learned this naturally, that it's going to pick up again. Challenge is going to come knocking on your door. So use your downtime wisely. And the way you stay ahead of destruction rolling in, is to be at the forefront of your own evolution, to stay proactive, to not rest on your laurels, to not just sit on achievements again. Learn to enjoy the process. And yes, there's a cherry on top at the end if you do make it. But keep moving, keep evolving, keep changing. We do a productive rest workshop on how to not just rest by numbing out or laying out on the sofa and doing nothing, but by designing your life around flow. So that even when you're taking a break, you've used your left brain for a while, now you're going to use your right brain, or now you're going to cook and you're going to use your senses, or now you're going to go exercise or walk the dog, or now you're going to go out in nature and connect with the trees. There's ways to stay in the flow continuously. And your life productivity and efficiency and effectively will go up exponentially. If you're coming home at the end of the day and you're just exhausted, you're doing something wrong. You can reorganize your day so that you can be productive continuously by giving the parts of you a rest, by doing other things that nourish you. When you come back to the table to be creative or productive in maybe your main profession, you're bringing the vibration, the frequency, the nourishment that you've accumulated outside of that to the table. So if you've just been numbing out and eating pizza and binge watching Netflix, that's the frequency you bring back to your project, your job, or your creative endeavor. And then it's going to be a lot harder to pick up from there. And then you're stuck and you feel like you can't get going again. It's much easier. An object in motion stays in motion. Stay in motion. All right. Okay. So far, so good? Okay, we're going to get hands-on here. Does anyone need a break? I know I tend to just go straight through, but if anyone needs a bathroom break, this would be the moment. But if you're all good, are you doing? Okay, yeah. So yeah, just 2 minutes to absorb. Let it settle. Feeling good so far? Good. All right, got great energy there. Yeah, good, good. How are you, Chris? Good. Nice. You're like a race car driver. You're in a pole position at the front. I've got this. Yes. Is everyone just visiting, or does anyone live here? Or who wants to live here? I don't know anyone who comes here who doesn't at least flirt with the idea of staying. Starts with extending your visa. Starts with communicating less and less with the people back home.
Start thinking how to make it happen and how to work from here.
Yes.
But then the lifestyle and
Yes. Yeah. Good. Good. Yeah. I was lucky in some way. Both of my parents escaped communist countries, regimes, emigrated to the US, and this was midlife for them already, and they just lost everything, had nothing, came with nothing. And so they had to trust that life would provide, because there just wasn't enough time for them to really catch up with things, and economically and in other ways. But I saw it all the time. Just these angels, that I call them, that would show up and help out the family and move us forward. And a lot of times it's that little moment where you have this intuitive hit of like, no, let me go back and talk to them one more time, or let me ask about this, or as an example, my mom was looking for a house for us that was in a good school district, but property tax, everything was, values were high, so rent was high, and she went to a real estate agent to inquire about, is there any home available in this district within their price range? And the agent said, no, these are all beyond your range. The lowest one is this one, but it's furnished, and even that one is beyond your range. And so my mom, after being rejected, had this intuitive hit to say, I still want to look at it. I still want to look at that. And she said, it's beyond your price range. I still just insisted on it because she followed this intuition. So the agent went and they looked at the house, and it was unfurnished. It was listed as furnished, which was an extra $300 at the time. It was in the 80s, which was a lot of money. That without that, and the agent said, there were a few things in there. The agent said, I can rent this to you without that additional amount. And so we wound up having a great 9-year run in New York in our childhood because of that moment. So again, listening to our intuition, it doesn't just have to be an intuitive hit now and then, this little thing. It can be a continuous conversation and engagement, a living from that place where you just feel you're now operating from a full body yes all the time. You won't do anything that isn't that. You also have full body no's, and you know to say, no, I will not compromise my energy field, my frequency for anything. Be it people, relationships, jobs. Help people interview many times, because I was on the other side for many years to know what goes on there. And I always say, when you interview for a job, think of it as you are interviewing them. If you're coming at it from the scarcity mindset, I really need a job, like, it's not going to turn out in your favor. They smell that. Ask them, is this the right place that deserves me? Say it in so many words. Okay. All right, we're going to do exercises now. We're going to break into teams of 2. Let's see. 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. And then...
Can we not?
Oh, you do know each other?
Yes.
Is that a good thing?
Yeah, but we do this so much, so maybe it's better.
Oh, okay. Oh, you want to be a part? Yeah. Okay, I got you. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So then you two. You two. Yeah, you two, and then you two.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. That's great. Amazing that you're taking the same workshop even. Yeah, good. It is one of the secrets of longevity is to spend a lot of time apart. The healthiest couples I know spend a lot of time apart. Even if you're in the same space, spend that time in stillness, in presence of one another, but not constantly engaging. This is not where happiness comes from, this constant talk and constant chatter, constant comparison, validation. This is where we're led to then believe this is the right person for me even. You lose touch with the higher calling of why you're meant to be together. You're now at the level of check marks. Like, do they match this and this and this and this? And as soon as there's anything that becomes different or they evolve and you feel threatened, there has to be a higher connection between the two of you than just meeting your conditions. That's conditional love. All right. So, yes, break into teams of two. And it's easier when it's a stranger, so that's good. And one person is the talker, one is the listener. And the talker starts first for 2 minutes each. Just share, open up about something that you feel you suffer imposter syndrome from. So it might be at work, it might be I don't feel good enough because the way I grew up, whatever it is, just share. And the other person is an active listener, so it's important. Just no need to respond, it's just listening. Yes?
Can you pull up the list again, maybe?
Yes, can you go back? Okay. All right, pick one from there. And 2 minutes each, and I'll call out switch, and then you switch.
Turn it down a little, it seems a bit loud. It might not be music.
And switch. All right. Wrapping up. Good. Good. All right. We can stay in the groups. You can feel how powerful sharing is. You can feel it in the air. You can feel it within ourselves. How important it is to be in the presence of those who are like-minded and supportive. That the biggest contribution we can make many times, most of the times, to others is just to listen, to not need to fix anyone, to not need to fix ourselves, even as we speak, share. And just to let ourselves be, let everyone around us just be. It's the highest form of existence, the highest frequency. Complete acceptance, complete surrender. And you can feel how the facades, the masks of the mind drop very quickly, and how you're now instantly in tune with what really matters. Feelings, your heart space. How that gives you a direction of what is important to you, what's holding you back, what needs to be released. So much more information from a 2-minute session than just sitting around thinking about your life all day long. We're going to take it into the next, not the opposite, but the next direction. going to celebrate our wins. So receiving, equally important. The flow is a cyclical in nature. So you're going to stay with the partners that you are. Again, go back to the original configuration. One is the speaker, one is the listener. But the listener, as I saw, active listener, eye contact. In this case, I want to see high fives. I want to see fists pumping. I want to hear yoo-hoo. Just really celebrate the heck out of each other. Okay? All right, here we go. Yes. Yes.
What's this?
And switch, 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 switch.
Got it.
All right. All right. Wonderful. So just reflect on how that feels in comparison. You have a full range of emotions available to you at all times. It's just a question of how do we apply ourselves in life? Which ones do we tune into? Do we make enough time to be with one another, to be those who can support us and we can support them? Or we spend enough time in nature? Do we spend enough time in gratitude observing the things around us? Or do we walk by the objects that we once loved, maybe furniture or painting, now we just gloss right over it? Do we take time to look at the detail and let the detail pull us in? It's really that simple. This is not some magical formula. Presence. Many people struggle with, how do I be more present? They want some kind of method. No, the senses, your senses are right there. What you see, what you taste, what you hear, what you touch, what you feel. Look at things. Actually look at them. Not at the mental snapshot that you carry in your head about it, but actually look at things. Look, see what you're seeing, hear what you're hearing, feel what you're feeling fully. Just going back to our natural state. This is nothing contrived here. Yeah, beautiful. Okay, so then the next sessions we can go back to our individual spots. Next exercise is an individual. Yes. Yes. Yes.
A reflection of mine out of that is it comes back to people wanting to fix things. Because it's actually really nice to be able to talk to someone, knowing that Chris isn't going to give me a way to fix it.
Yeah.
Because most things haven't got a simple solution anyway.
Yes.
From
Yes.
conversation. So I thought that was really nice.
Yeah.
To talk to someone about, because I feel like that. Oh, here we go. Now they're going to try and fix it for me.
That's beautiful. If you can establish that, well, thank you for providing that for her, right? But if you can establish that in your friendships and your relationships, even with people, it's like, I don't need a solution, but not from after reactivity has happened, but as a mode of communication. Because you're absolutely right. Most of the time, not only are we complex and the solution might be just too difficult, and the other person is another person. How are they going to help you? Really? But most of the time, we just need to release. We need to let go. And once we do, that pressure comes out of us, then our own solution arises. It happens all the time when you can just have the space to hear yourself think and talk. Then suddenly you realize, oh, half of that I don't actually believe in anymore. That's an old story. And then other things arise. It moves you forward. The most important thing in life, in everything, whatever your projects, whatever you're doing, is to keep moving forward. And moving forward is a thing of increments. It's not big jumps. That's not life. Life doesn't jump. You don't go from born to 10 to 50. It doesn't happen. The squirrel doesn't just pop out like that. Everything evolves incrementally. Allow it. Give it that space. Incremental growth. And to do that, all you have to do is just leave enough breathing room in your relationship with life, towards your thoughts, towards your feelings. You don't have to be perfect right away. This is also not a jump. We don't go from there to there overnight. We've spent decades in reactivity. The physiological wiring is going to take some time, a rewiring. But just do something, whatever it takes, to just move forward a little bit. That's why sometimes I say, think of acceptance as temporary acceptance. just temporary, just for this one moment, I'm going to accept everything as it is. I lost my job. Partner broke up with me. Those are not pleasant things necessarily, but to take the edge off the drama, just for a moment, just accept it. Because your resistance, right, the reactivity to it is most of what you're dealing with. And if you infuse a little bit of flow, a little bit of continuity, of impermanence into your thinking, into your being, everything gets a lot easier. You move forward. You're making yourself available to the next moment. You're not staying stuck. Like, oh, this is just happened to me, and I'm a failure. Or I'm ruined and forever. These big statements. Those are not true. Nothing is forever. Give yourself a chance to just move forward a little bit. If you're journaling, you don't know what to journal about. Write about not knowing what to journal about. Give yourself a starting point to something for the uncertainty, the unknown, to contribute something there. Because it's not you by yourself, ever. All right. So as we mentioned before, there's 3 cycles of being. You have your creativity, maintenance, and destruction. We create, and then we tend to go into maintenance mode. As we talked about before, this is when you start to cling to things. You start to control things. Here you're in the flow, you're connected to source, you can't create without it. If you ever experience creative block in some way, it's because you're too much in your head, too much working from what you know. What you know is no longer alive. It's what you already know. It's dead, essentially, because of that. But if you do create something, it's because you're connected to source, you're in the flow. And then you shut that down by going into maintenance mode. This applies to all areas of life. And now we're vulnerable. Now we're starting to shrink. Our outlook is starting to, okay, what's going to happen to take this away from me? And what's going to happen to show me that I'm a failure and I'm wrong? And this is what happened last time. And all of this noise starts to come in. This is a pure state of creation. Maintenance is when you start getting into trouble, and that's when if you stay there for too long, destruction is bound to roll in. You cannot cling and hold on to all the pieces and control the elements of your life. Change is going to come. So the moment you go into maintenance mode, you're starting to fight. You're starting to fight life. And you can't win that fight. And the longer you stay in there, the more destruction rolls in. Or, like we said before, you will be your own change maker. Because it's not natural to be in that state. So if you've got the best life, it looks like seemingly from the outside, but nothing new has become infused in you, you're going to be so bored out of your mind, you're going to create your own change, whatever that may look like. So you can see overall there's this picture of how life works, of how life is designed. That if we just play along, if we follow that rule book, that design, it has its best interest is our full growth, our fullest evolution is at the heart of that design. We can't stay small. Life won't let us stay there. We can't stay in a comfort zone. We can't stay in maintenance mode. It won't let us. It wants us to grow fully, completely. It wants us eventually, if you want to go there, to become one with it. Return back to source. So how do you prevent all of this? Well, you stay in creation mode. You don't just linger and cling and create comfort zones that you then need to protect. But you keep evolving, you keep growing. Take a break, of course, take some rest. Celebrate your wins. Absolutely should, that's part of it. But get used to this idea that it's continuous. There's no start and ending. There's no finish line. There's no picture that once you get it all together is going to be static. Just think of life as a continuous journey, if you will, and not even a journey because it's moment by moment. So this exercise is to look at your life and pick one part that's in creation mode. If it isn't, then one that you would like to be, maybe upcoming or an idea you have. One that's in maintenance mode, and one that's in destruction mode, or it's about to happen. Just reflect and spend a couple minutes answering these questions down there. The most important piece here, again, even if you're already a journaler, the connection is not between the head and the words. As you write all of this, the connection is between the words and your feelings. How do they make you feel? So as you write and answer these questions, feel into where do those sensations show up. You don't need to judge them, you just need to notice them. Notice where the feelings arise. Spend a few minutes doing that. One more minute. All right, wrapping up. So we're doing a range of exercises here, together, individually. Highs, reflection, sharing, releasing. These are all emotions, and they're all available to us all the time. It's our choice what to engage with, how to design our life. And moving forward, knowing what you give your attention to is what you become. You have a little more scrutiny when you are invited to an event or to hang out with somebody, and maybe we do that already to a certain degree, but it will be that much more acute and precise. Is it equal or elevating? Is it nurturing? Just knowing yourselves better will automatically lead to that. Better decisions, greater energy sensitivity. Everything is energy. Okay. All right. Next one is more rational. We talked about these simple questions of like, what does the situation tell me about me? How that can break the permanence of something we might be believing about it, and that allows us to be more of a student of life. Okay? We're students. Learning mode. When you're learning mode, you're more open, you're more receiving. You hear this often, a beginner, the world is open to because they're not limiting themselves. An expert, all the possibilities are gone or shrunk. So, what does the situation say about me? Recognizing that life is always a mirror and that you're open to learning more about yourself. Also, what happens next, I'm curious to see, or I can't wait to see what unfolds from here. That keeps the flow. It breaks open this permanence, this mental clinging to a situation. A simple question like that, asking yourself that throughout these ordinary situations every day, can keep you moving forward, see what happens next. Another of those questions is this, next slide please. Is this true? Simple question, but it can actually really break the stranglehold that some belief, some thought has over you. And again, because in order to ask the question, is this true? You have to be in your awareness of the thought. If you're absorbed and completely lost in the thought, you don't have the space to ask yourself this. But if you reinforce throughout the day, whenever something arises, is this true? It's already enough. Any question about the thought will break the identification with it. The simple one is just, is this true? You're going to combine that with a journaling exercise now. Just spend a minute or two, any limiting belief you have. Go through these 4 questions. Write it down. See what happens. You can take as much clips as you want. Those are okay. It's just the filming shouldn't show anyone. But the clips you could take. Photos too. Photo too. Yeah. Right, another minute. So simply by questioning our thoughts, we already invite change. Okay. All right. Good. Anyone pop any? Yes? Good. So much of the noise is just when they stay up there. If we just make a little effort to bring it out on paper or to share and to question what we're experiencing, to infuse what's happening with longevity, with a bigger picture. Yes?
Actually, one question which came into my mind, which I really like to do before to start the process, is like, if I cut myself open, is there a physical label? I'm not good enough, I'm wrong, whatsoever. And this is the first question which always leads you to no. And then you go into this, and then you have a run through, which is awesome.
Nice. That's fantastic. Where did you pick that up?
Actually in Mastermind, doing like coaching stuff, in this direction, doing this release work.
Yeah. That's a beautiful, it's another statement that you couldn't make if you're identified with it. So it takes you out of the identification with the thought, and it does it in this kind of brutal way almost. Which is very effective because it rattles you in a way of like, yeah, this is all just, that's real. It's It's not real. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for sharing. One thing I like to do that I keep saying throughout the day is to reinforce. So there's not just awareness, there's being aware that you're aware. So that's what I always say is, I'm aware that I'm aware. It's called meta-awareness. So if you can stay in that state, then you're, yes?
Maybe it's a comment of the question before.
Mm-hmm.
Who or what that makes you, brings you in thinking, but maybe it should be how does it make you feel? And then when you at the end, how does it make you feel? And then what is possible when you have this feeling? Because when I read, I answered with a feeling, and then I read the question again, I was like, who and what, and I was already, who, yeah, I would be a better person, okay, this is it. What would I would be rich, and then I'm already, yes.
So I love that because you're taking initiative. These are starting places for everyone, and then you modify however it works for you best. Absolutely. This is taken from Byron Katie, thework.com. She's amazing. She's in her 80s. She's not really doing any sessions anymore. But there's an additional 4 questions. So it's like 8 questions. These are the first 4 that we can do here, where you're basically just tricking the mind, wrapping your mind into its own silliness, so that it eventually you realize everything I believe isn't real. Yeah. So beautiful. Yeah. Good. Take that and you modify to fit your needs. Nice. All right, good. We're going to go about 10 minutes over today. Is that okay with everyone? Okay, good. We're going to enter our energy clearing session. Let's pass the, yes. You can do this sitting up or lying down. It's up to you. We'll take about 20 minutes. 25 minutes. And before we begin, we want to make sure that every single one of us has some sensation, some blockage, some weight, something that's come up in you during these exercises, during the talk, that you want to release. Yeah? So, do you have something that you would like to focus on in you? It's a physical sensation. Yes. Okay. Good. You're already typing out everything that you want to focus on. Okay, good. Everyone have something? All right, good. That's essential. All right, by now we should be activated enough for everyone to feel something that you want to work on and bring your attention to. Wonderful. All right, I'm going to walk you through a series of questions, and you simply answer them silently to yourselves. There'll be some music playing. There'll be solfeggio frequencies, which activate all of our chakras. And you're just going to engage with your sensation in a neutral and unbiased way. And as we learned, that is what leads to release. We're just going to do that a little more in depth than what we've done previously. There'll be long pockets of silence. That's normal. Just stay with it. Whenever you feel that your mind is drifted, accept it. Accept the reality as it is. And then bring your attention back as smoothly as possible to where you last left off. Those are the instructions. All right, ready? So you can lean back, or like I said, lay down, eyes closed. You can if you want, yes. I'm sorry? You'll sit back up after. Yes. Okay. Focusing your fullest attention on the sensation you wish to release. Answer the following questions silently to yourself. Is this sensation a broad, simmering sensation? Or more of a concentrated, pinpoint one? Is this sensation fluffy, like a cloud, or more dense, like a rock? Or perhaps something in between? Does this energy have a shape? Perhaps it's round, or oval, or abstract. Just observe. Just notice. Can you see the boundaries of this shape? Does it bleed into its environment, or are they well defined? Just observe. Just notice. Is the shape three-dimensional? Can you look around the sides, above and below, or front and back? Just observe. Just notice. Now draw an outline around the shape. Zoom in closer to view your outline. Come as close as you comfortably can. How close does the shape let you? Does the energy push back? Or will it let you move in? Get as close as you comfortably can. Just observing. Just noticing. Scan the entire surface of the energy from all sides, above and below. Front and back. And just observe. Just notice. Now look closely at the surface and see if you can tell the texture. Perhaps it's flat or bubbly or craters and edges. Just observe. Just notice. Scan the entire surface, noticing any changes in shape or size or density. Just observe. Just notice. As you scan, notice if any color arises. Perhaps it's dark or gray or red. Just observe. Just notice. Now see if you can touch the surface, tap it gently. No need to rush. No need to force. Just touching. Just tapping. Touching across the entire surface. Noticing any changes in shape or size or color. Just observe. Just notice. Now see if you can penetrate the surface. Perhaps poke a hole. Or enter it with your awareness. How does it respond? If it lets you, just go inside. See what you observe from in there. Just looking around. Just noticing. At this point, you can ask the energy what its purpose is. What is it here to do? Perhaps to protect you or shield you or hide something from you. Just ask. Let the answer arise. Now ask the energy if it would like to leave you. And if so, what is the best way? If it wants to stay, that's okay. But if it wants to go, perhaps it wants to dissolve or melt or leave you through an opening, or transmute into something else altogether. And if the energy is ready to go, you can accompany it out. Be it through dissolution, or watching it melt, or guiding it out through an opening. Or transmuting into something else. And as the energy leaves you, you can thank it. It's been part of you, perhaps for a long time. But now it's time to go. It is no longer needed. It is free to leave. Watch it disappear into the distance, into the ether, or transmute into something else. Make sure it's all gone, and no residue remains. And get it all out. Now reflect on the space where the energy used to be. What do you see there now? Perhaps it's spaciousness, or openness, or lightness. Just observe the space, the energy. And if there's something you'd like to invite into this space, you can do that now. Perhaps more love, more healing, more confidence, or trust. Anything you want, just invite it in. See yourself filling completely with this energy, this beautiful, light, healing energy. Now expand this energy into the rest of your body, all the way up to the top of your head. And all the way down to the tips of your toes. See yourself full of this beautiful healing energy. This conscious energy. See this energy oozing from your pores into your environment. Filling your aura, filling your energy field. This is your natural state, to be full of love and light and energy and consciousness. Now that you know what it feels like, you can invite it at any time, should it ever leave you. Really feel what it's like to be so full, so complete, so knowing, so trusting, so flowing. And whenever you feel ready, you can gradually bring your attention back to the room. Back into your body. Noticing your peace. And your presence, and your stillness, stillness is not the absence of sound, it's the presence of consciousness. And gradually, when you feel ready, you can gently blink open your eyes. Move your body. Notice your environment. Notice yourself in your environment. Notice the fidelity of your senses. Notice your aliveness. This is a great time to write down anything, any insights, any wisdom, anything you were able to release. how you feel. Were you able to release anything?
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have to be certain.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect. Everyone has a very unique experience, their own experience. It's different each time. Typically, what needs to surface and be released first is what gets attention. And often we go in thinking it's going to be one thing, and then it's something else. Did you have a release experience?
I am very aware now of it, and I can see it, while before it was just a feeling, and now I know where it is, how it is, and I feel I know how to let go, and it's also a decision, right? So even I want to let it go, sometimes it's a part of us, which we, even if it's a part I want to let go, I will release it.
Yes.
Like that.
So much what you said is so beautiful. This is what will happen. Any therapist will share the experience of working with a client for years in their healing progress. They've made so much progress, and they get to the doorstep of their healing, and then they don't take that last step. It's because when we're identified with something, it feels like we're letting go of ourselves. It feels like a death, which it is. An old version of us. So sometimes it takes multiple sessions till you can finally just really let go of a piece of yourself, even though we know it's no longer serving us. We're just too attached to that. Yeah, but beautiful. Now you see it, you identify it. You can work on that. Good. You've done this before. You've done this in the private session. Anyone who's interested, we can do this in private sessions as well. How was your experience this time?
Yeah, they came a few things up, like what change.
Mm.
Yeah, but not already 100% clear.
Yeah. The most important piece is that we're infusing our inner world with awareness. And even just a glimmer that you introduce into that space is going to start having effects. Sometimes we release things instantly that have been bothering. People have come to me with IBS that they've been suffering, irritable, digestive issues they've been suffering from for 30 years, and they've been to the hospital 50 times and no one can help them. And those things are very often just a reflection of something that we're holding on to, some trauma. And no matter how many pills you pop, that's not going to solve it. And then in just one session, they're able to let go. So yeah, more stuff to work on, huh? It seems endless, and it does seem endless. I always say, for those who question, reincarnation, I always ask, do you feel like you can learn everything you need to learn in one lifetime? I mean, just even rationally, it's just not possible. Thank you. Do you have to go? Do you have to go? Oh, okay, yes. Okay. So yeah, we went over there. So we just do our best to keep moving forward. How about you? Do you want to share? You're in the middle of writing, yes. Still something there? Mm-hmm. You were able to identify it?
Yes.
That's good, yeah.
Yeah, I kind of know exactly what I have to do.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm getting there
yeah.
with small steps.
Good, yeah, small steps. We're working on releasing things that are currently stuck, right? So energy that's in there stuck currently because we're resistant to feeling it is keeping it there. Ideally, once we move through the bigger blockages, we can move through life and just allow all feelings to come and go, right? That flow, without anything getting stuck to begin with. So we're no longer reacting to things. We're just feeling our feelings. And so incremental, but yeah, we'll get there. Yes. How about you?
I have the feeling that something definitely left my body.
Mm-hmm.
So that was quite intense, and I think, I actually never felt this way after like doing something similar. So yeah, that felt good. I'm trying to rationalize it again. Like, what was it? What
Yeah.
did it mean? It's like a lot. But I'll just leave it at that now.
Yeah. So the main obstacle to a session is the mind trying to like analyze and trying to like, what is happening here? Is this real, or am I just imagining things? We talked about imagination earlier. So that interferes with that process. What we're doing is we're engaging with the energy in an unbiased way, non-judgmental way. We're just allowing it to be. And it's not really about the shape, the size, and the color. It's about being inquisitive, curious, non-controlling. And these questions, following the questions, keep you in that state. And then the mind will interpret things. The mind is an associative tool. It doesn't, if I say banana, you don't think of B-A-N-A. It thinks of shapes and sizes and colors. That's how the mind interprets things. So that's why these visions come to you. It's just how the mind works. We're using it to navigate our inner world. So no need to really analyze it, what just happened. Something left you, and that's all that matters. Beautiful. Nice. Good. How about your partner?
I found it, I saw it, and then I got a little disappointed because when I looked inside, there was nothing in it. I broke through it, and I was like, okay, then what should I let go? And then suddenly it was just bright. And I was like, okay, maybe that was a small one, we have to look for the bigger one. But actually something went.
Beautiful.
It was like, I just could summarize it in one sentence, like pure light. So.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and that light will arise with enough of this work, and that's the light of your awareness. It is a light, it's a high frequency. You can get so good at this that, and that is the state of pure flow, that whenever something comes up, your attention is so powerful, the light of your awareness is so powerful, it dissolves immediately. And then that gets you to that state where you're just in total flow because nothing ever gets stuck in, to begin with. But I do this every morning. I've been doing this for 10 years. And every morning I scan my body. Stuff builds up either overnight or even on the previous day or something, where now the moment I put my attention to anything in my body, anything blocking me, any dark energy, it just dissolves so quickly. And in the beginning it was something that it would take a lot of work. My favorite story is somebody lived in my building in Los Angeles that after engaging with him, I would have to set aside, I started doing this after a while, set aside 2 hours in my calendar to process out how much I felt triggered by this person. And ultimately I got to the point where I finally understood he was my greatest teacher. There are very few things at that point that were still triggering me. Yet there, this one person that had everything that I needed to learn and let go of. And that's the process.
So what you're saying is that 2 weeks after Christmas, spending the whole time with family will be the most enlightening weeks of this year.
Yes, yes, exactly that. And that's the most beautiful, healthy attitude you can take towards all of life. You're not, the lessons, the challenges are not arbitrary. They are who we are. They reflect us. This is what you're going to have to work on, and if you don't dissolve it after Christmas, it's going to show up next Christmas. Or Easter, or whenever, right? Or in a partner. Or in your own children if you don't dissolve it first. So, yeah, it's a good mindset. How about you?
Yeah, it's similar. Like I didn't really know what I want to release, and then I thought, I in general I love this session. It reminds me of Vipassana,
Yeah.
which I got out last week. I did my 10 days.
Yeah.
What really stayed with me was let go of expectations.
Mm.
And what stayed with me was anicca, like impermanence,
Yes.
and you feel this now, you will not feel it in 1 minute, and was a very nice reminder.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good. Absolutely. Highly recommended those 10-day Vipassana retreats. I run my own retreats, modeled after that, but less strict. More with community and culture and nature and movement, conscious movement, and cooking and mala making and other things. So that's kind of the strict version of that. But so if anyone's interested, the next one's in July, first week of July. Very cool. Yes. Awesome. And that is the essence of Vipassana, is seeing things as they are, self-observation. Ancient Greeks also talked about that. They looked at it more within the confines of one lifetime, but essentially know thyself. Right? That was their paradigm as well. So thank you. How about back there?
Yeah, the same. I feel like I saw something come out, but yeah, I needed the actual to understand what was there. Trying to
Yeah, and that's really the power of energy work, is that you don't need to know. Who knows, that could have been in your childhood, something you even got imprinted by, in your lineage, generational stuff. It doesn't matter. The energy is there, that's real, and you released it. And there's no need you bypass the whole trying to understand it thing. Yeah, good, awesome. And how about you?
I found it quite interesting that how it looked like I found it, I felt it, and how it looked like it was actually a little bit beautiful somehow,
Mm-hmm.
which I found very strange.
Mm-hmm.
But in the process of trying to let it go, it was kind of hard for me as well, although I really want to let it go. Yeah, which just opens the eyes somehow, which I knew before, but emphasize it again, that which helped me quite for a really long time, but not for now.
Yeah.
And I could let go a bit,
Okay.
and then baby steps.
Yes, baby steps. Good. Yeah, and it's always important to not force or rush, or sometimes our tendencies then come out where like we want to break something or rip it out of ourselves. It's my role as a facilitator, is make sure that you don't do that and come back to just pure observation, pure presence, pure being energy. And that's what does it. So, all right, I know we went over, but thanks everyone for staying. This was such a joy. Hope you can see the joy in my face. Because it's your energies that contribute, your questions that contribute, but our presence, our collaboration in this space, somehow all the long journeys we've all had, it came together today to be here together right now in just the way we are. So I think that's incredible and amazing, and very grateful for every single person here. And like I said, I'm doing workshops every Saturday in December. Next week is the art of reinventing yourself. And then the following week is overcoming overthinking. It's another one. Yeah. And lots of other retreats. Oh yes, this is how you find out about different things coming up. There's a 3-day awakening accelerator based on my new book. That's next week, Thursday through Saturday.